Was there a grand conspiracy behind the whole COVID narrative? And was the sickness as dangerous as they made it out to be? Are the vaccines safe? These are the tons of questions that people have that we really don't have an answer to. And when you go online, you can find answers that fit all narratives, so it's hard to find the truth. But when you look really closely, it's kind of right in front of your face as what's really going on here.
Decide to get boosted again.
So an infection where you'll get a high viral load would be like vaccination. But, to be safe, every 6 months, you're probably going to be vaccinated. As we get more data, they might even make that shorter for people who are say 60 or over 70, where the duration seems to be a bit lower. So we're in for ongoing vaccination to stay absolutely safe.
So here's Bill Gates saying what he thinks it's going to be and how we're going to need mass vaccination and going to need to get vaccinated every couple of months, and this is the way it needs to be. And he's not even a doctor, so let's go see the narrative from maybe somebody who went to school for this.
Look what they almost did to monkeypox. You saw that same kind of approach coming on again. And that's because we have trained a generation of public health officials with the notion that equity, uber alles, is the only prism through which you should analyze healthcare. And not just equity of resources, equity of outcome. That's another fool's errand when it comes to a complex medical situation like we've been through.
No question, they did it with HIV, and Anthony Fauci was at the helm of that mismanaged outbreak as well, acting as if everyone is at equivalent risk when they know better. Children, we've known from the beginning of this pandemic, are at such a de minimis risk of a bad outcome from COVID as to be indistinguishable from zero. The idea of ever mandating anything for kids or lockdowns or shutting schools, it was never justified. And all of this, by the way, for what it's worth, Ed, I am not anti-vaccine. I am extraordinarily pro-vaccine in general. I've been considered a vaccine zealot in the past. But these vaccines never made sense, other than perhaps in the first few weeks, if you had told me that for a 90-year-old in a nursing home who was infirm, that because their risk of a severe outcome was so high that I might have said, okay, it makes sense to give them this untested vaccine. But for the vast majority of people, and after the first couple of months, the risk-benefit calculation is a big fat fail.
I'm piecing together a story about what happened, and it's not very appealing. The story is not very appealing. The idea of the 6 feet social distancing, both terms made up, 6 feet made up, all of these things made up. What was going on? What do you think was going on that led to the situation we're in?
When this hit and Operation Warp Speed came into being, and the amount of money that was going to be thrown at this, it was easy to see that all sorts of people stood to benefit. I call it conspiracy of interests. The pharmaceutical industry was, Pfizer stood to make, I analyzed this, they did $40 billion pre-pandemic. In vaccine year 2021, they did $81 billion. They doubled their revenues. Had this been turned into a quarterly booster program, which is what they were talking about at one point, if you remember.
Safe every 6 months, you're probably going to be vaccinated
and they got 50% of the world market share. That was $300 billion. Okay. Conspiracy of interests. To me, I call it the meta fraud. They all kind of got on board, saw a way to make money, and anybody who tried to buck the narrative and because of the new technology and the platforms that we have, people are shut down if they try to, warn anybody about it.
And so is it just old-fashioned greed that is the primary driving force behind this? I think it's something much more complicated, frankly. I think it's these people and their hubristic, sense of self-righteousness and their reputations and their authority and their authority being challenged and all this stuff. What do you say?
Well, the grand meta thesis I have, which I can't prove, is that COVID was a convenient excuse to cover up I'm also known, Dr. Drew, for talking about global debt defaults and a new currency reset coming. And basically, in 2019, the global economy was rolling over. There was something going on Wall Street, and then COVID hit, and the Federal Reserve had an excuse to print 65% more money supply and save, the financial system from collapsing. And if you're gonna have a financial collapse, the central bankers and the politicians who have been basically borrowing money for the last 12 years since the great financial crisis can't be blamed. So wouldn't it be easier to blame it on the convenient excuse of COVID? And oh, by the way, introduce a system of control that could prevent riots. You could turn on a COVID scare and shut down a riot in a heartbeat. So that's my grandmaster thesis. Harder to prove, but I can prove right now greed, corruption, and power